let's get ourselves going here and see if we can deal with the issue that's before us this evening. Good evening, this is Mark Nicholson. We're calling to order the Village Zoning Board of Appeals on June 17th, 2021. We have one item on the agenda for tonight. That item is a application by Adam and Lisa, and tell me if I pronounce that correctly. Is it Prune? Prime. Thank you. Owners of 134 Curtis Park, and it lists the tax number. The applicant seeks to attach a front porch to their house pursuant to Village Code 17511C. The required setback is 40 feet and is consistent with the neighborhood. The applicant proposes to build a porch within 30 feet, or put another way, they're going to put a porch on the front of their house that extends 10 feet past the edge of it. The applicant therefore seeks relief from that current zoning for a 10-foot area variance to a front yard setback. This property is zoned R1 13.6. Now, before we get that, let me give you a couple little brief highlight of what we're going to do tonight. We'll call to order the meeting. We're going to have a little bit of an explanation of how the process goes. We're going to deal with some administrative items, such as our meeting minutes from the last meeting. That doesn't take too long. Then we're going to deal with whether or not we have some issues that we have to clear, such as the seeker process and who is the lead agency for this. And we will allow your presentation aloud. Then we'll ask you to present to us what it is you want to do and why you're seeking relief from the current zoning. We'll allow the public, if anyone present would like to comment for or against this, and we will close that portion of the meeting. We'll discuss it among the board. If there's anything left to discuss here, we do that in public. Then we will close that portion, and while I will at that point ask for a vote, either for or against this project. By code, we need a vote of at least 3 in the affirmative to pass any zoning that takes place, any zoning variance. We'll go through that process. There are 5 steps in the process. We essentially ask these 5 questions when we're granting the variance. And you'll know the results right away, and then we'll close the meeting and talk about whether or not we have one for next month. And that's the extent of what we can expect here tonight. So, having done that, in front of the board, we have the meeting minutes from our last meeting, which was March 18th. If you've had a chance to look at them, you can either take a motion to approve them as written or addend them as appropriate.
I'll make a motion that we approve them as written.
We have a motion by Mr. Baker to approve the meeting minutes from June 18th as written.
I'll second.
Seconded by Kathy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Meeting minutes are approved as follows. All right. Let's talk about, and if I'm out of order here, the counselor will pull me back. That's me. But, you know, declaring who is the lead agency and then dealing with and or for, seeing as though we only have, they're the lead group. Because we used to have a planning and zoning board, now we've combined them, so we only have one, so we're the only choice you have. But we still need to do that publicly and then deal with any seeker issues that may or may not exist. So,
Do we normally do this before the presentation or after?
does it matter?
I guess, I don't think it matters, but.
What do we have in front of us? We have a request for a variance.
Normally, you're right, Bill. Normally, you've always considered the application first, and then gone to seeker, and then taken a resolution.
All right, so I wrote
If
it
Mr.
down.
Nicholson wants to do it up front, I suppose you can. It's just never been done that way before traditionally by the zoning board of appeals in Webster.
I'll tell you what, let us not change Mr. Baker's methodology.
Well, you know, you might mess them all up.
That's what I'm thinking of, and we might get something we don't look for. Why don't we have Adam and Lisa explain to us what it is you want to do and why you're seeking relief. When you come up, just state your name and your address, and then tell us about your project.
Hello, my name is Adam Prine. This is a variance request application for the property of 134 Curtis Park in the village of Webster, and the zip code is 14580.
Hi, my name is Lisa Prine. I'm Adam's wife.
Good.
And she lives at that address too. In fact, we're doing this for her.
Smart man.
It's a long lifetime dream of hers to, at least since we've been in this house too, which is about 10 years, to have a porch on it. So, the proposal is simple. We want to add a front porch to the width of the main portion of the house, which is approximately 30 feet long. All the Shantz-built houses in our neighborhood are pretty much the same. There's some variations with some additions and things like that, but for the most part, our house looks like everybody else's, two-story colonial. We originally, it's going to be a 10-foot deep porch, as we've talked about already, running the length of the house. We propose to have a small gable roof over the doorway to give it a little bit more character and keep it kind of in the same genre as some of the porches maybe over on Dunning in the older part of the village. And in the packet that we submitted, there are some CAD renderings of what we anticipate the porch will look like. And this is basically a concept sketch. It's not an actual architectural drawing. I heard some discussion at the beginning about overhangs and things like that. I don't know if that was pertaining to our house, but I realize that this isn't exactly to the fine detail of overhangs and eaves and things like that. Approximations are there. We intend to do the work ourselves at this point, at least the deck portion of it. I have experience building decks in the past, and as far as the roof goes, we may or may not contract that to a subcontractor to do that portion of it. I don't expect to see any variation to the overall look of the front porch other than what you see in the pictures. To me and Lisa, we've discussed this at great ends. We've been conjuring up this dream for about a year now, maybe more, depending. She's probably had it going on for a few years in her mind, but brought it out a year ago. And then we were originally going to apply to build this last year, but then with COVID, things got a little bit crazy. Supplies were not attainable or very expensive. Things have come down a little bit now, so we're ready to apply for the variance. Can you think of anything to add?
I don't think so.
Are there any questions regarding our plans or?
No, it looks pretty straightforward to me. Between the drawings, the drive-bys, your home, and like you said, most of the homes do not have porches.
Right.
So this would be nice for you, I imagine. Yes.
So your intention is to keep it open like it's designed? You don't plan on adding railings or half walls or anything like that?
I didn't plan on adding any half walls or railings based on the height off the ground because it's going to only be about a 2-foot high platform with like 2 steps up onto it, or 1 step and then up to the deck. So if, and I believe that's what code is that if it's only a certain height, if it's like below 28 inches or 36 inches or something, you don't necessarily have to have a railing on it. We like the open feel of being able to sit on the porch and not have to look through the railing and so on and so forth. We'll have landscaping in front of it, I'm sure, to kind of not hide the understructure, but to kind of give it a look more like integrated look. I think we have one of our neighbors has donated a porch swing, so. tries to show it to us every time. It's hanging in his garage. I've not seen it yet, but he's like, oh, you guys can have it if you do this. So,
Did you get any negative comments from any of your neighbors?
not one. And we spoke to many. There's a list there. There were a few that we couldn't reach in person. I assume that it had something to do with COVID or the fact that they, saw these two people come to their door with masks on and a clipboard. And whenever I see somebody do that, I kind of go the other direction. Because usually, we had somebody last night coming to ask about exterminating spiders and mice and stuff. And I'm like, we don't really have that problem. So, but anyways, no, we didn't have any issues. Everyone seemed to be very open to it. Charlie has graciously come, and he was one of the people that we asked. And it seemed like everybody was, oh, bring porches back. So, at least on our street, because as it was stated before, over in the village, everyone's got a porch. So.
Well, you did go the extra mile as far as contacting anybody that you personally didn't sign the signature.
Yeah, well, I think what we did was the people that we couldn't get, we sent letters to,
Right.
which gives them the opportunity to see when to come to this meeting if they had any issues or anything like that. So, yep.
I'm a big fan of front porches. Question for you, colors and construction material complementary or consistent with the existing house?
It will be. We recently sided the house this past year, so we kept it white.
Fair enough, it's easy.
It's very conservative, and one of the things that we discussed that trying to get away from is using any kind of niche-y colors, because it looks great right now, but 5-10 years from now it's probably not going to be as popular. So we kept it white, which is what it was originally. It's vinyl now, but it was cedar before. We had reservations about switching from cedar because it looks nice and it's beautiful, but it's a lot more to keep up than the vinyl. But as far as the porch goes, we intend to use a composite decking surface, a dark kind of a mahogany look to the wood. All the trim pieces will be white, PVC or something, aluminum or cladding or whatever. And the roofing materials will be the same as the roof on the house, as close as possible, black. So.
And if you're, just for you guys, if you're looking to spend about twice what you would have for normal vinyl siding, you can get cedar shake look.
Oh, yeah.
Vinyl siding.
We considered doing that just for the front portion of the house, because some people do that because, you don't need it in the back.
Right.
But even still, we were just like, let's just keep it consistent.
Makes it easy.
And with COVID, it had a bearing on how much money we wanted to spend, just because we want to make sure that, our kids are taken care of before the house is, so yeah.
Any other questions from anyone here?
So the only demo you're doing is your front steps?
Yeah, in the sidewalk, there's maybe a 6-foot arced section of concrete.
I know what you're talking about.
And unfortunately, it falls right where one of the pillars will have to be, or one of the cement footers will have to be. So, and I don't know if we're going to blast out the entire brick front stoop or just enough to get it low enough below the deck. Just because, the debris that you create, you gotta turn it out.
So the roof that you have in these CAD drawings, I don't know if I heard you correctly, you're definitely going in over the door entranceway, and you're considering doing the whole porch line? Or you're
the whole porch will be covered.
Oh, okay.
But I was indicating that there'll be an additional detail of a gable centered on the door.
Yeah, I see that.
And if you walk down, I walk my dog down Dunning every morning, and all the porches down there have a gable extended out over the doorway, mostly centered. Being an engineer, I notice when things are slightly off-center, and there's a lot that are off-center, but if you quickly look at them, they're centered and symmetrical. But
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. Thank you.
Any other questions from anyone here?
No questions, one comment, just as a point of mathematical clarification, according to your survey, it looks like your house is set back 41.4 feet from Curtis Park. You want to bring the porch 10 feet forward, so your variance request is really for about 8.6 feet, not 10 feet.
Thank you, yes, I stand corrected.
It's actually about 8 feet 7 inches. Thereabouts. Just
Perfect, thank you for that.
Just so the board understands.
Thank you.
Also,
I'm a stickler for those details.
also, interestingly, the code defines a front yard as the open and unoccupied space between the building line or front main wall. Now, I don't know if that includes a porch or not, because a porch isn't the front main wall. And I don't know what the building line is. Is this the new building line of the porch, or I don't know. It's a little
I think
interesting, but
theoretically, any permanent structure would become then a new wall. So,
or building line.
yeah. So the building line then would come. Now, if this thing was not on a permanent foundation, you could be splitting hairs where, people say, well, it's not on a permanent foundation, so it's really not subject to this or that or anything else.
And then you get into that part of the front yards in this particular district where you take the average if there are other structures that are closer to the road. We don't have any of that information. I assume in the Chance tract there, they're all the same setback, unlike
They're supposed to be.
the
Right.
older
They're
part
out.
of the road.
So is the 41.4 the actual wall, and is the 1.4 the eave, which could be the 40-foot line?
Well,
I think the 41.4 is to the wall.
to the building.
To the wall.
basement wall.
To the basement
Yeah.
wall, so the eave
The
takes
E
it
wouldn't
over.
count, because that's.
Yeah.
It does in some jurisdictions.
Yes, this is true. But surveyors typically don't shoot to the roof. They'll shoot to the wall.
Understood. Okay. Any other comments or questions from anyone on the board?
No.
Any questions or comments you guys have for us?
No, sir.
All right, now let's close this portion here. Let's take a second and see if there's anyone from the general public who would like to speak for or against this project.
It's a good project. I live across the street, so I'll be looking at it a lot. With a little luck, I'll even enjoy it.
Does Joe have your name?
And for the record, your name and address.
Yes. Charles Griffith, 131 Curtis Park.
Thank you.
Charles, I have a question for you. Do you have a front porch on your house?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a front porch on your house?
Did I, when I was a
Do you?
kid?
Do you?
No, I do not. The only thing that we have is a stoop with a railing on it.
I don't think there's any on that block that have that. When I went down the block, the only things were, there was a couple of handicap ramps
Yeah.
for folks, and then the stoop type thing,
Yeah.
the concrete stoop that came out, which has probably been there for 60, 70 years.
Well, if there were any of the center splits, and I don't remember by driving down it, but most of the center splits were built with a 4-foot
Yeah,
stoop and an overhang as a front
yeah,
porch.
yeah, some do,
But
some
that went to
don't.
the 40-foot line.
Yes.
That was adjusted.
Yeah, some of them have that, some don't have that,
Yeah.
All right.
yeah.
Yeah, from the intersection of Fuller and Curtis Park
That's what I'm
to
talking
Main
about.
Street, there are no porches.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I saw.
Okay, if there are no other questions or comments, yes, sir.
Richard Walder on camera. My only comment is I live on Elm Street in one of those old houses with a porch. I'm in favor of porches throughout the village. So, yes, good idea.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, if there are no other comments, I'll close this portion. So, thank you very much, you can have a seat.
Thank you.
Allow the board to have any questions, discussions among themselves if they so desire. I don't hear anyone with any questions or comments among ourselves,
Well,
okay?
I would echo Rick. I've always been a staunch advocate for front porches, especially in the village. They just promote community,
Neighborhood?
neighborhood. It's a place to sit and give your neighbors the high five, the high sign. And it just makes it nice. I don't see anything negative with having a front porch.
Couldn't agree with you more. Anyone else? Thoughts or comments? Okay, then we've got some other items that we need to address here. Bill,
Okay,
now would be your time.
Okay, all right. I will make a motion that the zoning board of appeals be the lead agency for this matter, and that it's a type 2 action under seeker.
Okay, Bill has made a motion that we're the lead agency and that there's a type 2 action under seeker.
Second?
We have 2 seconds. Very good.
This evening.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. All right. Now, at this point, we can wrap them up into one general statement, but what we're looking for at this point is a motion on the variance request. We have 2 things going on here, so I want a recommendation. What is the variance? Is it 8.6? Or is it 10 feet to build a porch that extends 10 feet off the front wall of the house? Making sure one way or the other that our intent is clear here if we were to go forward with it. And then the second thing we have is, does it meet all of our 5 requirements for this board's authority to grant a variance? So, first one, if we were so inclined as to grant a variance, we need a general consensus. I think we know what our intent is, but are we granting an 8.4 or 8.6 foot variance? Are we granting a 10-foot variance?
Well, the 8.6 variance gives them a 30-foot setback, which is what they're requesting.
Agreed. I want our intent to be very clear here, and Joe, just make sure that we mention that in the meeting minutes, that the intent here is, if we go forward, to grant a variance for a porch that extends 10 feet off the end of the house.
According to the survey map submitted by the applicant, Chris is correct, it's 8.6 feet is the variance.
All right.
Not 10 feet. If you grant a 10-foot variance, then it's, according to their survey, extending, more than 30 or less
Right, it
than.
would be 29,
Right.
28.
It would be
I
even
don't
closer, it would be
disagree
even
with you.
closer to the road.
I don't disagree, it just, okay, so we all know what we're doing if we so decide to do it. But before we do that, let's go through the first 5 items here. I just want to do this for the record more than anything else. The 5 items are: A, an undesirable change will be produced to the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the variance. Do we have anyone who thinks that that is a true statement?
No.
I do not. I think this will
No.
add to the neighborhood, if anything. All right, the benefit sought by the applicant will be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. I don't know how they do this without that.
If they want any kind of porch bigger than, 6 inches or something, they need a variance.
Right,
Okay, the requested variance is substantial in relation to the house and to the property. I don't believe that it is.
no.
I think it fits in nicely. The proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or the district in general.
Negative.
Nope. And then the last one, the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the Board of Appeals, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of an area variance. I don't think it was so, I don't think so either.
It's obviously self-created.
Yeah,
because There's
self-inflicted,
no porch
but
there now,
not
and you want a
detrimental.
porch. So they don't have to have a porch,
All right,
but that's not by itself determined.
okay, so we find that it meets those 5 requirements, or to put it another way, it does not produce any of the undesirable effects associated with it. So at that point, having gotten that on the record, what we look for then is an 8.6-foot variance, and I would like to have this read right into the variance. The 8.6-foot variance for the purpose of building a 10-foot porch off the front of the house from the front wall line, whatever engineers call it. That's the way I'd like to see it done. That way our intent is clear and there can be no question.
Right.
Okay,
You want a motion?
if we're ready to take a motion, if we've got one.
Okay, I would like to make a positive recommendation for an 8.6-foot area variance, which would establish a 30-foot setback from Curtis Park for the construction of a new front porch at the said address.
So we've got a motion on the table that would grant the variance that we outlined.
Excuse me, is that correct? If they're currently, they're 41 feet and some odd inches from the street, right? They're 41 feet and some inches from the street, right?
41.4 feet setback currently.
So wouldn't they want a, what, you said they're gonna get an 8.6 inch setback, right?
No,
No,
8.6.
Variance.
8.6-foot
8.6
variance.
foot.
Okay, and then,
That'll allow them to build a 10-foot porch and still be 30 feet setback. It's a math problem.
no, I get it. Okay.
Actually, they'll be a little more than 30.
Yeah, there'll be a little bit more by 31 feet,
No,
6,
Right.
31.6.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I was going with that. Okay. So they have to change the language twice in that? You have to change it within 31.4 feet? Applicant seeks relief from the current zone of 8.6, or you just put 8.6 and it becomes whatever it becomes?
That's true. Okay. Setback would be 31.4 feet.
So you say that in the language, we change that 40 to 31.4, and then we change the variance to 8.6. Does that make sense?
It does,
It does?
as long as we get in there that the purpose is to extend a 10-foot porch off the front of the house.
Yeah.
So how would you reword that, Chris?
I would say, okay, positive recommendation for an 8.6-foot area variance for the construction of a new 10-foot deep front porch with the ultimate setback being 31.4 feet from Curtis Park.
All right,
Sounds
I
good.
think we have a valid motion on the table. Do we have a second on that?
I will.
Kathy has seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Good luck with it. I'm a big fan, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
All right, moving on to our next item, a real quick discussion. We got passed out tonight. New
Take care.
Pages.
pages, thank you.
everyone.
That's something that we're gonna do
Yeah.
right away. This will take some time to put into your books. I would just like you to do 2 things before the next meeting, and we don't know when that will be, but verify what number book you have so that we can keep that straight. It's on the front here, it should match the one that you have, and put those in. And if you have no issues with it, great. If your number or your book doesn't match what's on the front here, and that's the one above 5/11/2021, let Joe know. Second one is at the current time, we do not have anything on our agenda for next month. We will wait till the appropriate time, but if there is no items on the agenda, does anyone have an intense desire or need to meet? Let the record show I have all the heads nodding in one direction, that's back and forth.
The old pages, can they just go into recycle? Or Should they come back to the village?
No, you can hang on to them. In some cases, some of you might have made notes on some of the old pages, so you might want to just flip through them yourself to see
So I
if
know
there's,
that, but once we have the new pages, the
Yeah.
old pages,
they can be recycled.
I think this normal recycle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Last question, and this goes to our attorney, and this is for me, it is. So, we've got this overhang issue, we've got 41.4 feet, we've got 40 feet setbacks, which we normally thought we had. Should we, can we make a determination, this board make the determination, how we're going to define that going forward? In other words, saying something like we're gonna make an assumption that the front of every house is 40 feet back, and unless it is something substantial, if they want a 10-foot variance, we're gonna say that. Or do we have to get into, okay, the drawings here as they are and get into a lot of math? Can we make it, or then you have the eave that in some place, not a lot of surveyors will shoot it, but in some jurisdictions, they use the end of the eave as extending into the property.
Well,
It's a question.
this board is empowered to interpret the zoning code. You can't, I don't know, the eaves is kind of a stretch because I read you the definition of the front yard.
And it says
And I
front
think it
wall.
would be a stretch to include an eave in that definition. So, you know, you could take a vote that that's the way you're gonna interpret it. If everybody ever took you to court, I don't think you'd be successful. But it's from the building line or front wall, right? That's what.
Joe just captured two sentences in there that says that's what we, you know, that was the discussion we have, the guidance that we have, and the general agreement is it's the front wall, the outer side of the front wall, the basement wall, whatever.
Wait, so is it the major wall? So like, for example, what if you have a bay window? That bay window might be 5 feet wide, but it sticks out
18 inches.
18 inches.
Foundation
So is it-
Again, the definition is between the building line or front main wall. I don't think you can consider the
So
bay
that's
window
why I
the
said-
main wall.
Well, that's what I just said. I started my whole sentence with, is it the main wall, or is it just the bay window, considering,
Well, the code says main wall.
okay.
Right. See, I think you have to
It's
accept
different for every
that
town.
a basement wall is technically permanent, whereas a bay window could be taken out and then a flat window put in, and then whoop,
Right.
your setback is now there. An eave can be cut off the house, whereas a basement wall, yeah, you can move it, you can build in front of it, but it's typically permanent. And that's what the surveyor shoots to, traditionally. So we should traditionally accept the surveyor's point as the front wall being the basement wall, the foundation wall.
And I think generally speaking, the intent of a front yard setback is so that the buildings are uniform. Whether there's here or there a bay window or an eave, who cares? It's where the main building is.
Okay,
At least that's how I would.
we've just put two sentences in
And
there. on
those
that.
jurisdictions that are that nitpicky about eaves and bay windows, I'm glad I don't live there.
Yes.
All right. Everybody all right with that?
Sure enough.
There you go, and it makes sense. The code says the front main wall, there it is.
Yeah, so I would go with Chris, and it's where the basement, the foundation is, because you can't move that very easily.
Well, and in my thought, I'm gonna go with whatever the surveyor shot.
Right.
And if he happened to shoot the shingles that stick out 2 more inches than the basement wall, I'm okay with that.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, that's
All
why
right.
part of the application process is you have to submit a survey.
Right.
All right. Any more questions? So keep a look on your email, anywhere from 15, I don't know, when does it have to, 15 to 10 days before the next meeting, and we'll notify you.
Yeah, typically, 2 weeks before the meeting, I'd have a notice in the Herald for a public hearing.
Yep.
And then 1 week before the meeting is when the agenda would be in the Herald.
Perfect. So, nothing on there right now, nothing being set with, so that being the case, I have nothing more. If anyone would like to adjourn.
I would like to make that motion that we adjourn.
You were awfully quick there, Bill.
Second.
We have a motion and seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, folks. Have a great night.
Thank you.
So that's the first meeting. Did you have the,
It's not bad, Bill. 36